Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There were many famous ulama of the Ahnaf throughout the ages. In reality, there are more than one can ever attempt to count, so many of them have contributed so much to the deen. But sadly, a person finds that as people became more distant from the knowledge of the deen, so too did they forget about many of these great and famous ulama. But that did not in any way erase or lessen the efforts of those ulama who sacrificed so much for the deen of Allah. But while many people may have forgotten about those great ulama, there has always been those people that have remembered them too. And because of the fact that they haven't been entirely forgotten, therefore you find people today referring to certain of those ulama as hidden gems. One of the most famous and greatest of those gems is Imam Abu al-Adl Zainuddin Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa as-Suduni Rahimahullah. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa was born during the rule of the Mamalik, which is known as the Mamluk Sultanate in English. It existed after the Ayyubid dynasty but ended before the Ottoman Empire was formed. The Mamluks, much like the Ottomans, were also largely a Turkic-speaking people, which is why you have a name like Qutloobughaa. Qutloobughaa is actually a Turkish name. It is comprised of two words, Qutlu and Bughaa. This is why you would find names like Qutloobeg and Qutloobay and so on and so forth. So Qutloobughaa, if we were to translate it to Arabic, it would be Al-Fahlul Mubarak, which for lack of a better word would be translated as the blessed horse. As far as the Suduni part of Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobugha's name goes, then this is taken from the fact that Imam Qaasim's father was a slave and he was set free by the deputy sultan of the Mamluks in Egypt. This man's name was Sudun ibn Abdullah al-Shaykhuni. So Qutloobughaa and his son Imam Qaasim were known by this title of As-Suduni on account of that. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah was born in Cairo in Egypt in the year 802 after Hijrah, which was a time when the world was still full of giants of knowledge. But while Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah was still very young, his father passed away. So Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa grew up as a poor orphan in Cairo. He had a great love and desire to study the deen from a young age. But being an orphan, he had to fend for himself and find a means of earning money. So Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah took to tailoring at that young age. And through this, he was able to earn some money. So he would work and use the money to study the deen. And this continued for a while until Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah went full time into his Deeni studies. And he rose through the ranks like the rising sun. And at the age of only 18 years old, he had already authored his first kitab on the topic of inheritance. And inheritance is often described as being one of the more complex sciences of the Sharia when it comes to knowing who will inherit and who won't inherit based on who all is alive at the time and what everyone's share should be. So from this young age, the world already woke up to the fact that here in their midst was a youngster that was going to achieve great things with the permission of Allah. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah was a faqih. He was a muhaddith, he was a historian, he was a poet, he was a linguist, and you could go on listing all his qualifications upon qualifications. But to truly understand the caliber of who Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah was, you need to know who his teachers were first. The most famous teacher of hadith that Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah had was the Hafiz, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani Rahimahullah. It was on the request of Imam Qaasim that Imam Ibn Hajar wrote a kitab titled Al-Ithar Bima'arifati Rijal al-Athar, which was based on the narrators found in Kitab al-Athar of Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani Rahimahullah. Not only did Imam Qaasim give the suggestion for this book to be written by his teacher, but he actually played a big role during the time when Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani Rahimahullah was writing it. And the elucidations of Imam Qaasim was accepted by his teacher and included in the book as well. After completing this book, Imam Ibn Hajar Rahimahullah praised Imam Qaasim for all his contributions to this kitab, and he described Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa as the qualified and unique Imam of Hadith. A praise of this sort, coming from the likes of Imam Ibn Hajar Rahimahullah, should give a person an idea of just how brilliant Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah was. When a person looks at the point of fiqh, then who was the most famous teacher of Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah in this regard? The teacher that Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah spent 36 years of his life studying under was the great Imam Kamal ibn al-Humam Rahimahullah, the author of Fath al-Qadir. Everything that Imam ibn al-Humam Rahimahullah had written and taught, Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah studied under him. So great and knowledgeable was Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa that when Imam ibn al-Humam Rahimahullah was asked about who he would leave his spot as teacher to the day when he is no longer there, Imam ibn al-Humam didn't even hesitate before saying that that person would be Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa. At the time of studying under Imam ibn Hajar Rahimahullah, the most famous student of Imam ibn Hajar, Imam Shamsuddin as-Sakhawi Rahimahullah, he was also busy studying under him. And he not only bore testimony to the greatness and knowledge of Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah, who was his peer, but in fact, he actually went and became a student of Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa after Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani Rahimahullah passed away. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa was often sought by various rulers to take up a position as a senior teacher, but Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah was never swayed by such things. Imam Qaasim Rahimahullah had two main things that he loved doing: studying and writing. That is why he spent the major part of his life, over 50 years to be exact. He spent that entire time studying by all the great ulama he could find, and that is why his list of teachers is so long. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah belonged to that group of ulama like Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Imam al-Zayla'i, Imam Hafiz al-Iraqi Rahimahumullah. Each of these muhaddithin had written kitabs relating to the issue of sourcing the ahadith used in the books of fiqh like Hidayah and Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam al-Ghazali. Now Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah, he wrote a supplementation to each of those Huffadh's kitabs, adding in the ahadith which even those Huffadh of hadith hadn't been able to locate. That's how brilliant of a muhaddith Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah was. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa wrote a great number of kitabs, some saying he had written 87 kitabs and another saying he had written over 100 different kitabs over the course of his life. Imam Qaasim ibn Qutloobughaa Rahimahullah passed away and was buried in Cairo in the year 879 after Hijrah at the age of 77 years old. This was an Imam that showed absolute dedication to studying the deen for years upon years. Long after having qualified as a faqih and a muhaddith, he still was not deterred from studying the deen further. May Allah greatly reward him for his efforts and grant us the understanding of the importance of studying the deen from reliable sources, and that one's studies ends with death and not merely with obtaining a degree. آمين يا رب العالمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.